Tonight's event is the latest installment of the library's poetry series hosted by Cammy Thomas. Before we begin, just a few things to note. Please keep yourself on mute. This is a Zoom meeting, so everyone is visible unless if you turn off your camera, just something to keep in mind. If you're having any technical issues, message me privately through Zoom's chat, and I can try to help you. If you have any questions or comments for the poets, we'll have a short open period at the end if you'd like to make any remarks. And lastly, this program is made possible by the generous donors to the Cary Library Foundation. So I'd like to now introduce tonight's host, Cammy Thomas. Cammy has been hosting our poetry series for several years now. She is the author of several poetry collections, including Tremors, Cathedral of Wish, and Inscriptions, all of which she's received awards for. Now, please welcome Cammy Thomas.
Thank you very much, Matt. And that was Matt Schumann, by the way, who has...
Oh, I never said my name.
No, you didn't. He's a modest guy. Anyway, we've been working together doing these library programs for a while now, and it's been such a pleasure to work with him. I'm very grateful to all of you for coming tonight. It's going to be a terrific reading. And I want to just extend every welcome. Even though we are virtual, we are still very happy to be in this space together with our work. The poets are going to read in alphabetical order. I will introduce each one of them before. How to reach them, you can look in the chat. In case you want to buy their books, which I'm hoping you will do, if you like what you hear, please do contribute to the greater life of poetry by supporting these artists. So I will begin with our first reader, Daniel Brock Johnson. In June of 2023, McSweeney's released his newest book, Shadow Act, an elegy for American journalist James Foley, which chronicles the perils and joys of fatherhood. It also recounts a shattering tragedy that plays out thousands of miles away, the beheading of Johnson's closest friend, journalist James Foley, by ISIS in Syria. In this poetic daybook, like no other, Johnson often speaks directly to his missing friend. I don't know, Jim, where you are, even long after his death. Johnson's work has been honored by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the Chicago Poetry Center, and elsewhere. Media outlets and literary journals such as NPR, PBS NewsHour, The Washington Post, Best American Poetry, Tin House, Jubilat, and others have featured Johnson's writing. He currently serves as the executive director of Mass Poetry and lives in Greater Boston with his wife and 3 children. It's my great privilege to introduce Daniel Johnson.
Thank you, Cammy. Thank you, Matt and the team at the Cary Library. It's great to be on with you, Marian and Elizabeth. I'll be reading from Shadow Act, an elegy for journalist James Foley. And I'll be doing it in sort of an illuminated text fashion. Thank you, Matt, for sharing the images as I read work from the book. And just to give you a little bit of context about the images, so James Foley reported as a conflict journalist from points around the world, did some amazing work. During that time, he was captured once in Libya by Gaddafi's forces and freed. During that time, he wrote prison letters on 7 pages of paper that he then folded and smuggled out in his shoe, and then he sadly was captured in Syria and was killed in Syria. But I've written a lyric essay and in response to those letters, and so I'll sprinkle bits of that lyric essay and combine them with poems if all goes as planned. So thank you to you all. Wayfarer. The night we slept with our windows open, we woke to yellow leaves littering the bedroom floor, filling our wine cups, puddling in our shoes. Our room shone the color of an autumn swamp, a slash of red where a boat moved off. We waited for her. She crossed an expanse. We charted her course. She came by boat on a Tuesday. Rather, she came by knife and traveled light. We waited for her, and she waited for us. We called her Chance. We call her Olana. She came on a Tuesday, bright knife. Winter daughter. Flags slap in slanting rain, and the trees on Poplar Street tremble like cranial nerves. To keep the heat, I seal off our bedroom windows with plastic sheeting. Even then, we bicker over 1 or 2 degrees. A cry strikes flint in the half-light. Abella clutches our newborn, curses the draft. We have known and been cold before, I think. Better yet, I will teach our winter daughter, I will teach our daughter Winter to swig scotch from a flask, to pull through ice a thrashing pike. Photograph Roslindale, 2010. Standing in our kitchen, Jim clutches Olana at 6 months to his chest like a bundle of forwarded mail. The top of Olana's pink knit hat crests above Jim's shoulder. Jim cracks a toothy gambler's grin. It's his mother's smile and her mother's smile before that. These things, they're neither created nor destroyed. Tuesday on Poplar Street. Don't, cries Luca as her car pulls out. Love you, Olana shouts and skips inside. The kids and I lay out train tracks, bridge pillars, the sprawling wheelhouse, and pry the top off a stalled red engine to slip fresh batteries inside. Sliced apples, lemonade, this our book of days. Passing the door, I spy Abella's Honda parked again at the curb as if the hour had been rewound, the late August sky re-divined. Barefoot, I step onto the porch, smile and wave. Her door falls open, shoulders slack, her eyes cast down. She rises and heels from her car, but won't approach. What's wrong? I ask, and touch my wife's face. Low sobs lift her ruffled blouse. The kids press against the storm door, a train in each of Luca's hands. It's Jimmy, you say. It's Jim. So the next portion is written in response to James Foley's Libyan prison letters. There's an epigraph which reads, "It's the little things that keep us going, but how quickly we try to forget the fact they're holding us interminably as hostage using a process we have only the faintest glimmerings of." And that's James Foley in his Libyan prison journal, April 2012. And this opening passage is in the voice of James Foley. We went to Brega on April 5th to get close to the front lines. We never imagined how our lives would change. Our foolishness gives me nightmares. We got in a red bus and drove ahead to the last checkpoint. Some teens told us Gaddafi troops were 300 meters away, but we thought it was impossible. Now that Jim's gone, but not gone, here, but not here, I sit from time to time in front of these prison letters that he smuggled out in his shoe. I let my eyes roam the teeming sea of words, script dizzyingly small. Again, this is in the voice of James Foley. We watched the scout bus and some pickup trucks drive 200 meters more and turn when two Gaddafi trucks came firing. We pressed ourselves close to the ground as bullets zipped overhead. I heard Anton yell, "Help, help." But I couldn't even raise my head. I yelled, "Are you okay?" He said, "No." More bullets. I called again. Nothing. Page 1 of Jim's letter is double columned, crammed with blue text. You can see that he's conserving space, printing neatly on unlined paper. This alone is remarkable, surely a sign of duress. Jim was a poster boy for poor penmanship, so much so that the headmaster of Lowell Elementary gave him a Tinsley's penmanship workbook when he was teaching there so he could improve his handwriting. The next slide. If you look closely, numbers 1 through 4 pepper the body of the text, suggesting that Jim penned page 1 of this letter over 4 sessions during his 44-day captivity. The first page you can see has been creased down the middle between the 2 columns and 3 times vertically so that Jim could fold and hide the letter in his shoe. After teaching middle school in Phoenix, as a recent college graduate, Jim plumbed his experiences to write a prize-winning short story. The protagonist, Mr. Foley, receives an anonymous letter. From her distinct handwriting and punctuation, Foley recognizes it as coming from Joanna, founder of the We Hate Mr. Foley Club. "Mr. Foley, you are not the boss of this school, so don't try to boss us. Give back our pencils now, and please go back where you came from. Note the use of comma or else from somebody." So I first met James Foley when we shipped out to Phoenix, Arizona to teach. I would be teaching 5th and 6th grade bilingual students. Jim would be teaching middle school history at Lowell Elementary. This was with the program Teach for America. Despite our teacher boot camp, things quickly took a turn for the worse. On day 1, somehow I ran out of lesson plans by noon. On day 150 or so, Jim chucked a piece of chalk at Antonio to get his attention. I can still hear the boom, boom, boom of Albert's size 10 sneaker striking my classroom door. To me and Jim both, it was clear we better look for other lines of work. Together, we made a pact to become writers. Photograph Phoenix, 1998, a class picture from Lowell Elementary. Jim, 4th row far left, listed as Mr. Foley, stands ramrod straight in a white Oxford next to the Arizona state flag. Mario, row 2, crosses his eyes. Ruben, row 3, inflates his cheeks like a pufferfish. Jim tenses his jaw as a strobe lights the scene again and again. Protect me from what I want. Havana, Cuba. Protect me from what I want could have been the motto inked above Jim's wrist. A prayer, a plea, a sans serif reminder to self. The body is a temple awash in island light. Protect me from lust. The body a Cuban dance hall, rum on the tongue, tom-toms, marimbas, pressing Lourdes close in a short lace dress. Ay, Havana, protect me if you want. Our guidebook declared the shimmering bay slapping against the malecon too tainted for swimming. With the crystal bottle raised, Jim stroked on his back through breaking waves. Nothing is more beautiful than the ruin of a beautiful thing. And this poem is an erasure of a poem written in response to this photograph, which is from the year 2000 in New York City. He's looking down at the keys in his hand. He'd offer later, it doesn't matter. The light is liquid as it is, call it thieves' light. All shadows are final like dimes in water. On our knees, we'll order sweet plantains and pepper steak. All curse the year of the ox. He'll raise his can of Sing Tao. and die before us. And this poem has an epigraph. Four foreign reporters, including Global Post Foley, freed in Libya. PBS NewsHour, May 18th, 2011. This poem's called Celebration, and there's a phrase in here called, which references going to see the elephant. That's an expression, I think, around World War I, World War II. If soldiers saw combat, they referred it as going to see the elephant. I think it's fallen out of usage since, but this is celebration. The governor dubbed it James Foley Day. We toasted Jim in a white party tent. Hoisting a beer bottle, he said, I went to see the elephant. I drank gin and tonics on that perfect lawn. Jim held Olana in his arms. Come with me, sweetie, he whispered into her curls. I'll take you if you want to go see the elephant. We toasted Jim in a white party tent. He stared off and through us like he saw something we couldn't. A flashing mirror, a wisp of smoke, whatever it was, he didn't say. Jim's mom handed him gifts for each of the guests. I couldn't open mine for a year. We toasted Jim in a white party tent. The governor dubbed it James Foley Day. I'd love to stay, he explained, but I've got to get back to see the elephant. Again, this is one of James Foley's Libya letters. With a jeweler's loop in hand, I bring my eyes even closer to Jim's prison journal. On the way my money was stolen, his words become letters. The letters dance into swirls and hooks. Nicar made a lamp out of a sardine can. I see the woven cotton fibers of the page, its edges fringed with dirt. Page 3 of Jim's Libya letter, the strangest and most beautiful of all, burns a cool blue white, the color of a snowfield at midnight. In the header, a crescent moon floats next to a small crest. To scratch an ashen line on the wall, to record events on paper, these acts alone now tether me to Jim across space and time. What's the distance between us now from the moment Jim wrote these letters? 4,446 miles in 3,439 days, or 9 years, 6 months, and 29 days. On page 5, the last, Jim returns again to the wound of getting captured, of watching Anton bleed out in the desert sand. I have these thoughts in my head like my life is over as I know it. It's actually a comforting one. Like after a disaster as big as this, who I am as a person, how I interact with the world will have to change. I pray that it's a trigger for me to become a better person, that I can give up the booze for a year and not sleep around anymore. These two I pray most often. Here, Jim sounds a bit like one of the Desert Fathers, or poet Theodore Roethke, who wrote in one of his 277 spiral notebooks, I'm tired of women. I want God. If we can go 2 slides forward, Matt. August 19th. They say New Hampshire man. They say James Foley. They say at the hands of the Islamic State. Thanksgiving Day, they say. They say Syria. They say unmarked car and caliphate. It is unclear, they say. It is apparent. They say freelance reporter. They say James Foley. They say black-clad captor and knife. It is still possible, they say. It is reported. They say faded yellow. They say ribbon and priest. They say James Foley. They say, we believe. inshallah, for Diane and John Foley, Jim's parents. When it was over, though it would never be over, Jim's mom sent a gift to our house, a chrome lamp and candles, a tornado lantern or hurricane lamp. It depends what you call that black wall of water skirling and rising that takes what it wants. Cars, refrigerators, cows, wedding photos, birth records, inshallah, your firstborn son. When it was over, though it would never be over, as it would never be before again, only after. As the rains would never be the same rains or lashing waves. I struck a match against the flooding dust, then again, and hung the lamp. Days after Jim's execution, while sitting blankly in my sun-baked study, I cracked the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath to find this feral inscription scrawled inside. DJ, fuck it, believe, Jimmy 06. Mostly I take this as a message to carry on with my writing. At others, I suppose it signals not to slam the door on God entirely. Jim never did. Deep in the unabridged journals, Plath muses, let me live, love, and say it well in good sentences. With all respects to heaven, I like it here. After a photograph of James Foley reading in a US Army bunker, Kunar province, Afghanistan, 2010. Back propped up against a mammoth wall of sandbags, you're reading Let the Great World Spin, combat helmet cast off, aviator sunglasses set back on your head. I sit here thinking about how much courage it takes to live an ordinary life. Legs crossed, you're wearing the pants your mom bought you Christmas last. Your eyes gaze down at the page, lips slightly apart, a week's goatee sprouts. Minus the shelling in the distance, the flak jacket yoked around your neck, you could be reading in a cane chair at a cafe anywhere. Pilsen, Phoenix, Istanbul, Mexico City. The world spins, we stumble on. Serene as it seems, images flit and ghost across the page. A gunner shot in the head on a high mountain pass floats above Philippe Petit, now reclining on the wire, now upright. I was really trying to get rid, really trying to pray, get rid of my lust, rediscover that innocence, circle of circles. You stole my books, Jim. I stole yours. 50-50, you're reading a copy you filched from me. We never said what we meant outright. Read this, we said instead. You gotta fucking read this. And Matt, feel free to go through the next few. Thank you. So I'd like to mention, thank you so much again to the Cary Library. Thank you, Cammy, and everyone for being here. Proceeds from the sale of Shadow Act will benefit the James Foley Legacy Foundation, which Jim's parents founded in the wake of his execution in Syria. They work to advocate for the freedom of US hostages held unjustly abroad, doing amazing work. And just a number of hostages have returned recently. Thank you in part to their work. And then I have a thank you slide. There are too many people to thank, in the time left, but I'd like to thank my wife and family, McSweeney's for publishing Shadow Act, Wendy Strothman, my agent, and then so many friends and counterparts, a number of whom are with us tonight. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was incredible. Very, very moving. I'm just taking a breath, and then we will go on to our next reader this evening. I would ask everyone to mute unless you will be reading. Elizabeth Lund is the award-winning host of Poetic Lines at New TV. The show features in-depth interviews with emerging and established poets about their work and creative process. She also interviews poets and reviews major collections of poetry for the Christian Science Monitor, where she served as poetry editor for 10 years. From 2015 to 2020, Elizabeth wrote a monthly column about poetry for the Washington Post. Elizabeth co-directs Haiku Newton, which began in 2022 and brings haiku on lawn-style signs to venues around Newton. Her own poems have appeared in various publications, including the Dalhousie Review, Connecticut Review, the Christian Century, and the Patterson Literary Review. Unsilenced is her debut collection. Elizabeth has read or spoken at festivals and venues along the East Coast, including the Dodge Poetry Festival, the largest poetry festival in the US, and the Gaithersburg Book Festival. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Cammy. I am delighted to be here and to be part of this wonderful series. My presentation is going to be very low tech, largely because the subject of my book is dark and personal, so I'm going to let the words and the poems speak for themselves. The subject of this collection is one that I never expected to write about and never wanted to write about, namely domestic violence. But in 2011, my Aunt Elaine was shot and killed by her husband of 40 plus years. And her death left family members and friends and family wondering, what happened? Why did he do it? And probably the most painful question for each of us was there anything I could have done to prevent this? So I'm going to open with the title poem in the collection, Remembering Elaine. One great blue heron punctuates the shore, huddling in first snow. What keeps this steel-eyed juvenile here, weeks after the others have flown? Gray on gray, she stands like a wrought iron question mark. What does she read in the tinfoil sky, its indecipherable script? Does she stand like me, awaiting a sign? Has she hunkered too far down? How do winged creatures lose their lift, their bold exclamation point? One could say the sky turns a deaf ear, that some stories are meant to trail off. She stands ramrod straight like a stubborn suicide or a righteous sacrifice. But I'm not ready to let her go as the season's first storm spits and swirls. In the days after my aunt's death, one of the things that made the situation much harder to bear was the media coverage and some of the stories that were really very negative and painted my aunt in a very unfair light, very inaccurate light. The first poem that I wrote in this series is in response to one of those stories. Auntie. When police arrived, she hovered just beneath the ceiling, her oh and no struggling to rise. I don't believe she taunted him, waving an apron as if at a bull. Old man, you can't even shoot straight. 46 years they had teetered at the edge of a precipice. Did silence scream one last time, nagging the spouse neither wanted nor loved? Or did she slump as he wavered, his oh, so soft and hideous that only their tabby in the rafters had any chance to survive? This next poem is also written in response to something that was said in a news story. Refrain. The family removed all of his guns, thought they'd removed all his guns. All the weapons removed, they thought. All weapons the family removed. All but one, the newspaper said. All but one. My aunt was one of the most vibrant, loving, compassionate people I have ever met. And she had a way of connecting with people and cats. And so I wanted to capture some of her vibrancy. The fittest. Animals respond to a gentle voice, she'd say as one shook on her lap. Figaro, Daisy, Magic, she coaxed and captured them all. Princess Blackie, Snowball, saved from the side of the road. One tiger followed her everywhere, a shadow leaving the room. Another hid under the sofa until she was all alone. Love them until they can rule the savannah, always a gentle voice. Elaine, lost queen of the jungle, you should have roared or run. In any relationship, there are questions about what draws people to one another, what keeps them together. And in the case of my aunt, I think there were many factors, including some wonderful memories that my cousins and I also shared. That Sunday, 5 of us bounced in the car while he lowered himself down. To the lake, he said, tossing a kiss while honking the horn. She looked like a sunflower, face turned toward the warmth. Periwinkle sky swallowed us all as we rolled out the yard. For years, she held that moment, her perfect husband, once. For 10 years, I volunteered at MCI Framingham, the women's prison here in Massachusetts. And as I got to know the women, I heard certain stories over and over about how they had been abused by husbands or boyfriends, and many of them had also been abused by parents. And so what I realized over time is that many of them were imprisoned by those memories and those experiences long before they went to jail. Interrogation. For 3 weeks in March, a barred owl kept watch from a beech tree inside the barbed wire fence. Who comes for you? It asked every night of the women trapped in their prison blues. The question echoed across the empty yard. Who comes for you, or you, or you? Perhaps the bird divined lowling passings, or knew how lovers, friends, and children rarely visit. Who comes for you or remembers your name? The owl repeated until every brown leaf still clinging from last season shriveled and fell from the tree like an unspoken confession. The book is divided into 3 sections. The second section focuses on the experience of women I knew at the prison. This next poem captures one of the stories they shared. Maria's Mirage. No one understands why I stay. He just needs a little more love. Red bites, yellow bruises, blue light slicing the sky. He was never treated right. Mother, father, friends. Purple eyelids, scarlet scars. Is that blood on the door? Pay no mind. I tripped and fell. He just needs a little more love. Other women shift in their seats. Sister, why can't you open your eyes? As I mentioned, every family member asked later, what could I have done to change things? Is there something I should have said? And my should have said is what prompted this poem. Secret. I should have told her. I escaped. 2 a.m. he was beating my door. I woke to see 2 gauzy figures. There was no moon that night. The banging rose. I'll rip you apart. The safety chain, and I groaned. Help me. I cannot breathe. My words tangled like the sheets. I never told her or anyone. One figure stayed at the foot of the bed, the other by my side. My phone in the other room. I should have told her I escaped. You can too. Don't continue to hide. One specter stood sentry at the door. The other covered my eyes. One of the things that I love about poetry is the fact that it can allow you to transform even the most difficult situation in some ways. And for me, as I was writing, the poem started to shift when I looked at things a little bit differently. This next poem turns the manuscript from darkness toward light. Underwater. The challenge was easy then. Dive off the boat at high tide, swim down, down till you touch the white sand, then translate the messages signaled from above. I remember sitting on the bottom, watching the greenish sun wobble or trade one shape for another until the sky became a watercolor map only my cousin and I could decipher. Each wave made the thin paint shimmer, another wash of light rippling across the canvas. Nothing looked the way it should, and sounds like poorly aimed arrows deflected off the surface. Yet when she leaned over the side of the boat, arms waving like seaweed, I knew what she meant. Stay there. Go this way. I'm the queen. We didn't need words, not when an invisible chain ran from boat to sand, a family secret that flowed through our veins, an ancient script tattooed on our fingers long before we were born. Soon enough, my lungs would burn and I'd kick toward the surface, reclaiming the world of sound. Salt never stung, as I recall, until I broke through the swells. The sky is mine. I own the sun. Hold your breath, hold it. We understood metaphor then. Throughout the poem, owls appear, and in many ways they serve as the omniscient speaker who says things that the humans can't or won't. I'm going to close with a small poem that is very, very much a symbol for me of hope and of the wisdom that is inside all of us. Flight. Owl knows the stair you leave is the one that creaks. Step off, let your whole life speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was gorgeous. I'm very grateful for your work. Thank you. And by the way, just to mention that people's books are available in the chat. You can find places to click to find them. Our third and final reader for tonight is Marian Shapiro. Marian Kaplan Shapiro, a practicing psychologist, is the author of a professional book, Second Childhood. Her first poetry book, Players in the Dream, Dreamers in the Play, and 2 chapbooks. A resident of Lexington, she's a 5-time Senior Poet Laureate of Massachusetts. She was nominated for the Pushcart Prize in 2012 and 2021. Her collection of experimental poems, At the Edge of the Cliff, was published by Plainview Press in January 2021. Her latest book, Upbringing, a collection of graphic poems, was published by Plainview in January 2023. Marian.
Wow, following those 2 readings is really a challenge. It was wonderful. I want to show you the cover of this book, which, if you look carefully, you can see some little red buds here and there. And that's sort of the theme of my work, that in what looks like a really dead tree, there's something that comes to life anyway. It's a surprise, but it does come to life. And this book, Upbringing, it sort of wrote itself, because unlike other books where you put a bunch of poems together on a theme or a style, it wrote itself in my dreams. Every night I dreamed 1 or 2 or 3 poems, and they were all on the same theme, the way children grow up in the prison of their childhood, because of course they can't leave, so that's where they are. And finally, after there were 5 poems, I thought, well, that one might make a nice little series. Then there were 12, and I thought that might make a nice little chapbook. And then there were 30, and then there were 40. And by the time I got to one that called itself End Paper, I figured it was done. So it kind of arranged itself very neatly from infancy up to the day that a young person sets off for college. And so it was very easy to actually put it together because it was together already. So I'm going to start by reading a poem that was a postlogue in the book itself. And I changed the tense, so now it's both a prologue, and at the end of my reading, I'll show it again. And thank you, Matt, for all your work. And in the one that I show you again, I'll put back the tense that actually existed. And you'll see that there are such things as these ways of demonstrating people's thoughts or people's speech bubbles or thought bubbles. This would be a speech bubble, And a thought bubble would be something with lots of little bubbles around it, and you'll see some of those. So to read this one to you, it's called You. You are walking down the sidewalk, glancing at the storefront windows, this bakery, that clothing store, a sandwich shop, when suddenly you see a person dressed just as you are, the same cap, the very same jacket. You realize, laughing perhaps, that person is you, grown-up you, whose hair is grayish. Yes, of course it's you. No longer the you who was afraid of the dark, or the you who thought your kindergarten teacher was so old. She was, you learned just recently, a mere 25. Perhaps you'll meet yourself today in these pages. Perhaps you'll gasp with recognition on one page, but not another, or cry, or shake with anger, or later in private speak aloud to the parent or the kid, trying to explain, to offer the perspective you've attained. After all, you've made it through. Perhaps you'll think, what can I do to make a difference in this world where pain is passed down like an old relic that remains up on the mantle, dusted weekly? What will you say? Many of these poems have a similar title to start with. They're called Always Tell the Truth. Always Tell the Truth, number 1, number 2, and so forth, because we teach our children that truth is very important. Don't lie, tell the truth, and so forth. But it's a lot more subtle than that. And I think all of you will recognize some of that. Whether you've ever been parents, you do have one quality that makes you really experts. You've all been children. Always tell the truth, number 1, innocence. This is a dialogue. Mimi, this is Mrs. Brown. She's going to be your babysitter today. Is your name Mrs. Brown because you are brown? Mimi, don't be so rude. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Brown. Why was that rude? That's the bubble. It's hard for a child to understand. She's just saying something that's true. Always tell the truth, number 2, new friend. Lucy, Mrs. Wilson and I are going to have tea in the kitchen, and you and Rosie can get to know each other. Wow, Rosie, you are so fat. Lucy, that's very rude. You hurt her feelings. But she is very fat. Never comment on someone else's body. Okay, the rule is don't say anything about anybody's body. And that's how some children deal with it. They make up little rules in their mind to help them navigate this crazy world. Next, always tell the truth, number 5. How old are you? I remember lots of these when I was a kid. Maybe some of you do too. Here we are now. Now I'll get the tickets. You just stand here while I buy them. 2, please. 1 adult and 1 under 5. Yes, she's 4.5. Mommy, did you forget I am 5? Of course I didn't forget. It costs more if you're 5. It's ridiculous to pay more. You take up the same seat we're paying for. Is that a lie? Sorta, but everyone does it. Like saying fine when somebody asks, how are you? You don't start telling them all about your little problems. I just can't seem to get it. Maybe when I'm older, much older. And here's one that is a current one, isn't it? Called vaccination. It won't hurt a bit. Ow! You lied to me. It was for your own good. And in the child's bubble, head bubble, she says, my mommy is a liar. That's her conclusion. Always tell the truth, number 4, home alone. Addie, I'm going next door to talk to Mrs. Huxtable for a few minutes. If you want to call me, just use this phone. You just press the picture of me and I will answer, okay? Sure, Mommy, that'll be fun. Can I try it now? Sure, but only call me if you need to tell me something, not to play with it. I'll let you play with it again when I get home. It'll be fun to be home alone. I can pretend I am you. There are a few rules. No touching the stove. No climbing on anything, okay? Okay. And don't answer the doorbell. And if you answer the phone and someone wants to talk to me, do not say I am not home. Just say, Mommy is on another phone, so please call back later. But that isn't true. Isn't that a lie? Oh God, yes, but it's like not telling someone about a present. It's a special kind of lie that's okay. Okay, Mommy, I will do it the way you said. There sure are a lot of those okay lies. Always tell the truth, number 6. Oh, vanity. I got a fabulous dress for the wedding at half price. It makes me look so young. What do you think, dear? Doesn't it look great on me? Very nice. Oh, you men, you don't really appreciate fashion. I bet our daughter has a much more developed sense of clothes than you have. Lucy, what do you think? Doesn't this dress make me look like 30? Really? I want you to tell me the truth. No, I think a mini looks silly on you. Your legs have all these veins and stop that right now. If you haven't got something nice to say, don't say anything at all. Remember that? Whoops, I mentioned her legs. I got another rule. Don't believe anybody who says they want you to tell them the truth about her body. Not happily ever after. Daddy, Carol says Jerry Gerbil died. He was just lying in his cage and he wasn't doing anything. And her daddy said he died. That's too bad, honey. She will be sad for a while, but you can get another gerbil later. But another gerbil won't be Jerry. Why did he die? I don't know. Perhaps he was very old, like that cactus we had. It just died because it was old. And then we got another one. Grandma is very old. Is she going to die soon? I don't think so. She's very healthy. So is Jerry. He wasn't sick. If Grandma dies, will we get another Grandma? No, it doesn't work that way. We'll just be sad because she isn't here, but we'll know her soul is in heaven and she's looking down on us and smiling at us. So that will make us happy. What's a soul? It's hard to explain. If they're good, they go to heaven. What's heaven? Ask our minister. She knows more about that. I won't be happy. Never mind that soul. I want Grandma. If she has to die and live in heaven, I want her to come back for my birthday and Thanksgiving. I'm going to tell her that right now. That's enough of that. Grandma doesn't want to talk about it. It isn't nice to talk about people dying. Let's go and eat lunch. And the thought bubble. Everyone's going to die. The plant and the mosquito I hit. And Mommy and Daddy and Tabby and Carol and me. I don't like this at all. Studying the Constitution. All men are created equal. Is that really true? Now, some men are tall and some are short. That's not equal. Some are rich and some are poor. That's not equal. Some are disabled. Some are born deaf or blind. So what does created equal mean? It's about their rights as human beings, that all men have equal rights in this country. What about women? Of course, women are included. Women aren't mentioned, so they're not equal to men who are mentioned. I don't think that's right. It should say all humans are created equal. Sit down. You're just being argumentative. Any more of that, and I'll send you to the principal's office. Tattling. I saw Wendy copying Zoe's math test. That's the teacher's problem, not your own, not yours. Mind your own business. I saw Bobby stealing candy at Target. That's the store manager's problem, not yours. Mind your own business. Pete signed his dad's name on the permission slip. That's his dad's problem. Mind your own business. Jackie's mom gets drunk every Sunday and hits the kids. That's the dad's problem. Mind your own business. Someone told me he's going to kill himself and he made me promise not to tell anyone. That's different. You have to tell. Who is it? That is our business. How come? You told me never break a promise. Pretty complicated. And now the last poem, which was the first poem. And now you've heard the whole book, so it's in the past tense. You're walking down the sidewalk, glancing at the storefront windows. This bakery, that clothing store, a sandwich shop, when suddenly you see a person dressed just as you are, the same cap, the very same jacket. You realize, laughing perhaps, that person is you, grown-up you, whose hair is grayish. Yes, of course it's you. No longer the you who was afraid of the dark, or the you who thought your kindergarten teacher was so old. She was, you learned just recently, a mere 25. Perhaps you've met yourself today in these pages. Perhaps you've gasped with recognition on one page, but not another. You might have cried, or shook with anger, or spoke aloud to the parent or the kid, trying to explain, to offer the perspective you've attained. After all, you made it through. Perhaps you've thought, what can I do to make a difference in this world where pain is passed down like an old relic that remains up on the mantle, dusted weekly? What do you say? I'm listening. Oops, there we go. And I did want to also thank a special person in the audience, my grandson, David, who did all of the artwork in this book and my previous book, because I can't do any, and he does it so well. So thank you again, David.
Well, thank you, Marian. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of our readers. I can't remember whether we said in the beginning, but we do have just a minute or two here at the end. If people have questions for any of the readers, you can write a question in the chat, or you can just, I think, unmute yourself and ask a question. So we'll just give a moment or two, just a couple of minutes, in case anybody would like to ask a question. Anything? It's not required. All right. Well, I think I will just again say thank you all so much for coming. It's been a pleasure, and I'll thank Matt and the Carey Memorial Library for giving us a wonderful set up for this, and I want to especially thank Matt for all the technical assistance, because it's always more complicated when you have visuals. And he just did a great job and was so totally calm, and it was wonderful. I just was able to sit by and watch him work. So Matt, thank you again, as always. And again, have a lovely evening, everyone. Go to more readings, buy more books of poems, and thank you from Cary Library tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cammy, Marian, Elizabeth, and Daniel.
Thanks very much to our readers. You were spectacular.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. See you all soon, I hope.